ask yourself, how much do I value myself? Very, very tricky question, because, you know, off rip, I feel like a lot of us are going to say, well, I value myself a lot. I love myself a lot. But how much do you love yourself? How much do you value yourself if you're always creating excuses for why things are not getting done? Do you think that your time on this earth is just infinite? Do you think that you have forever and a day to get this thing done? Do you think that this dream is just going to live in your brain forever to the point that it comes true on its own? Do you not feel like you deserve to show up for yourself? Do you feel like you're not deserving of that thing so that you don't have to show up for it because you feel like, you know, if it happens, it happens, and if it don't, it don't? Hey y'all, it's Megan May, and this is Transparency, where we keep it real about our growing pains and all the beautiful moving parts of life that may not be the most glamorous, but shape us into who we are today. So if you're ready for some introspection and evolution, go ahead and lock in by hitting the subscribe button. And if what I says resonates with you, you can leave me a comment and or like so I know we see each other. So when I last signed off with you guys, I talked about having a December challenge. I talked about even posting that episode at the start of December, on December 1st, so that the challenge can, you know, go ahead and start taking place from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. Child, I myself have not started the challenge, and that's what brought me to today's topic, because I was like, it's so crazy how, you know, you could sit here, you know how people be saying, didn't even finish my thought because this is exactly the perfect tangent, but you know how people be saying like, it's easy to give advice but it's hard to take your own. I feel like I'm definitely one of those people, because it's so crazy that I'm coming to y'all and I'm trying to encourage y'all, like, whatever you fallen short on this year, whatever, you know, you probably started, didn't complete, whatever goals you feel like are attainable to achieve within this last month, go ahead and put your best foot forward, lock in, and really just give it all you got. And at the same time, I did not do that myself. And it's just crazy to think about just how funny life can be in that way, because I think, you know, we do things when we feel like it, and there's ebbs and flows in life, and so sometimes we don't necessarily realize how much of a detriment we're being to ourselves, or how much we're not showing ourselves the right kind of love and the right kind of grace and the right kind of service and all the things that we really need, and that we sometimes look to others to provide for us. We don't really realize how we fall short in providing those same things to ourselves. And time just continues to go by, and then, you know, you look up and it's a whole new day, it's a whole new week, it's a whole new month, a whole new year, and you're stuck in this same place of feeling like incompetent and feeling defeated, all these negative feelings. And I had to really break it down over the course of not even last week, because last week I feel like I was just in a funk, I was in a slump, and there were things that contributed to me feeling that way that I'm not even gonna touch on. But, you know, regardless of what those things may be, it's like, okay, you made a commitment to yourself and to even your audience that you were going to put your best foot forward. And so, in spite of what's going on around us, I think it's very important for us to prioritize self-love. And that's what today's topic is going to be about. It's going to be about showing yourself tough love in the times where you're in that slump, when you're in that funk, and you need that extra pouring into. And it's not really great to look to others to pour into you during those times, because I feel like everybody goes through various ebbs and flows. Everybody has their highs and their lows, and sometimes they overlap with your own highs and lows. So to rely on your best friends, your mom, your cousins, whoever you really lean on the most in those times where you just have like this unshakable feeling of just pity or doubt or fear or anxiousness, whatever negative feelings that you might be experiencing, it's always going to lead to, I guess, a sense of defeat, a sense of unaccomplishment, or just regret or sadness or whatever, because they can't pull you through every single time. You have to find something within yourself and dig yourself up from out of that hole, from out of that slump. And so what we need to really focus on is how to curate self-love. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I feel like normally when we hear self-love, we think about saying affirmations and pampering ourselves, taking ourselves out on dates, doing things that we really, really love. But I feel like what we don't really put a lot of focus on is how self-love is oftentimes the same as tough love. And shout out to my mama because she is the best tough love giver that I know. And I say that because my mom is very nurturing. She's very sweet, but she's so stern in a lot of the things that she says and a lot of the things that she does. And so, you know, sometimes it's kind of hard to receive that as love because you feel like, oh my gosh, like you always on my case, you always on my neck, you always on my head. But it's coming from a place of wanting more for me and like those that she loves. It's coming from a place of genuine concern, genuine care, genuine love. And so sometimes it's not what we want to hear, but it's exactly what we need to hear to really let that switch go off. Like, okay, we need to really like buckle down, really need to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and really show up and show out. Like, it's not time to get soft. It's not time to really like sit here and just rot in self-pity. Like, there's no time for that. Of course, I'm always going to promote feeling your feelings and being authentic to how you feel, and, you know, pouring into yourself in various ways that's catering to certain emotions that you're feeling at certain times. But to get into this place of, oh, I just don't feel like it, oh, I'm sad, so I'm just gonna do X, Y, and Z for the next day, the next 2 days. You know, like when you allow yourself to fall off of a routine or fall off of a plan and pretty much eliminate the structure that's been keeping you afloat, then over time it's almost like you're backpedaling, like you're reversing the work that you've put into bettering yourself. And so I know when my mom be on my case, it's because she sees so much more in me that at times I'm probably not seeing in myself. And so she has to give me that tough love where it's just like, look, I love you, I understand what you're going through, but at the same time, there's things that need to be done. There's things that you said you wanted to do. Time is a limited resource. So as you're sitting here feeling sorry for yourself, as you're sitting here, you know, giving yourself all these slaps on the wrist and making all these excuses because you feel a certain type of way, right now, you know, time is passing. And in the future, whether the future be tomorrow, next week, however long from now, you know, you're going to be looking at those moments with regret because you're going to be thinking to yourself once you're in a better space, like, dang, I can't imagine or I can't believe that I allowed so much time to go by while feeling these feelings and not really like committing to the things that I said I wanted for myself. You know, you're only delaying the outcome that you so desperately want, that you might be praying for, that you might constantly be talking about with those that you love, that with those that you trust. You're only delaying that outcome by allowing yourself to just sit in this funk. And so I genuinely want us to shift the thought of self-love or just love in general. Well, no, we'll keep it with self-love because love in general can touch on various people, various things, but I'm talking about ourselves today, the relationship that we have with ourselves today. And I want us to really be honest about, do we really love ourselves? Do we really even know ourselves to love ourselves? And to swallow that hard pill where we might come to the realization that I might not actually love myself the way that I thought I did. Like, yes, I keep myself up, my hair be done, my nails stay done, you know, I practice skincare on a consistent basis so my skin is glowing. I'm wearing nice clothes that's very well fitting for my body, you know, doing these things that create the illusion that I love myself to, you know, somebody that might not even know who I am. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty, when it comes down to committing to the things that I say I'm going to do I have that self-trust with myself? Am I betraying myself when I tell myself like I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, and then something throws me off my game and now I don't feel like it, so now I'm not doing it? that's not love. That's not self-love. And you also have to put things in perspective from the place of when you love others and you tell somebody that you're going to do X, Y, and Z. Are you going out of your way to make sure that you fulfill that promise, that you're doing exactly what you said you're going to do, because you don't want to disappoint that other person? And if you are one of those people that goes above and beyond for those that you love, that's great. But we need to show ourselves that same type of love, that same type of trust, that same type of respect and dignity, and build within ourselves that confidence that shows like, hey, you know, I am not perfect, but at the same time, I do what I need to do to make sure that I always feel loved, regardless of what's going on around me, regardless of who can pour into me at any given moment. I always feel loved because I know that when I say I'm gonna show up for myself, I do so every single time. And so that's really the perspective that I'm coming from when I'm talking about self-love today and when I'm talking about tough love today. And so I hope that this is resonating with those of us who, you know, sometimes do fall short on keeping the promises that we make with ourselves. And before I continue, I do want to note that being a person that shows yourself tough love isn't about being harsh, isn't about being overly critical about when you fall short or, you know, the things that you're doing in your day to day. It's more so about just setting stern boundaries with yourself, firm boundaries with yourself, where yes, you're understanding that life is happening and sometimes things don't go as planned, but you're also showing yourself that respect by being disciplined and doing what you say you're going to do. Even when it's hard, even when you're not in the mood, doing what you said you're going to do, because you know in the long term it's going to make you feel better. It's going to make you feel more satisfied, more at ease. And I don't know if anybody else is like this, but I'll be setting myself up oftentimes because I'll know that I want to do something and then I'll just be sitting here, you know, letting time pass by, and I'm creating all these reasons in my head why it's okay for me to be doing X, Y, and Z opposed to doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then, you know, once the sun sets and it's actually time to start winding down, it's like, another day has passed and I still ain't do what I said I was gonna do. And then I start beating myself up and I just start being real anxious and feeling real overwhelmed. And it's like, why would you put yourself in that position? Why would you make yourself feel so bad when you have all the power to make yourself feel good and feel encouraged and feel inspired? Like, yeah, like I said last time, motivation is fleeting, so we're not always going to feel motivated to do the things that we say we want to do or do the things that we know we're supposed to be doing. But it's not about what you feel like doing. When you create a plan and when you have a vision for yourself, tough love is being like, okay, you know, maybe you did say that you was gonna do something for an hour, but if you really are like just not feeling it, maybe just minimize the hour into 30 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay, I'll sit down and I'll give it 15 minutes. And probably within that 15 minutes, the time goes by so fast, you in the groove now where you're like, okay, I can give myself another 15. Shoot, just make it 30. And then in no time, you've committed to the hour that you said that you were going to commit to. So I did want to go ahead and clarify that before moving on, that tough love isn't about being critical, but it's about seeing that you're being disciplined, seeing that you're showing yourself that same level of commitment that you would show anything else that you view as important. So like I mentioned, the reason why I didn't commit to the things that I shared in the last episode is because I just was in a slump. And because it's going to make me emotional while I was in that slump, I'm not going to share in this episode. At least we'll see if it comes up down the line. But some reasons for us getting into slumps can be transitions in life, self-doubt, feeling burnt out because we're just spreading ourselves too thin. There's various reasons for being in a slump, but I do feel like, you know, as hard as it may seem, those are the moments where we need to really tap into ourselves the most and really pour into ourselves the most. And so some of the ways that I feel like we could do that is by making things easier for ourselves. And one of the ways that I feel like I make things easier for myself, and I talk about it all the time, is journaling. Because when you journal and you start putting everything out on a page in front of you, it's like a release. You're letting it out, and you can be as honest as you want because it's for you. It's for your eyes alone. Unless you're one of those people that just feels the need to share what you write in your journal with others. But it's for your eyes alone. So you could be as brutally honest as you need to be. You could cry. You could scream. You could write it and tear it and rip it up and burn it. You could do whatever you want, but you could be as raw and as honest as you feel. And I feel like this helps to get out of a slump because once you make that release, it's like a burden has been lifted off of you. So that is one of the first things that I feel like for those of us who find ourselves in a slump and it's preventing us or it's prohibiting us or holding us back from doing what we said we were going to do, I think the first thing that we need to go to is our journal. Well, first thing you need to do is pray. And that's something that I've also been following up on. But first thing you would need to do is pray. And the second thing you need to do is journal. Both those things together, I feel like, is a game changer. And even though you may not feel an immediate like exhale or an immediate weight lifted off your shoulders, because you know in reality there's still that thing that's bothering you, that's putting you in this space, I feel like even though that is the case, once you make that release, it's kind of like, okay, it's out, now what? Now what? And so I feel like it's the little small things that we do when we consider like self-love that, you know, like the pampering and all of that, that comes next. Because once you start to make yourself feel good, you're in better spirits, and now you can continue proceeding on with what you initially planned to do. So after you pray, after you journal, the next thing I would recommend is just doing something that you know always makes you feel good. If it's just taking a real long shower, singing at the top of your lungs, do that. If it's going and buying some new cosmetic products or buying a new outfit, do that. If it's doing your hair, do that. Like whatever small little thing that normally just lights you up, do that. Because that is how you get out of a slump. And it's really the small things that add up to make you feel like yourself again, to get you out of that funk and remind you of who you are. That's all we be needing, is a reminder of who we are. And for me, like, it normally does stop after the journaling. Like, of course, I'm somebody that likes to look good, so I just do like whatever I need to do. I mean, if my nails already done and my hair already done, then it's probably just as simple as just doing some skincare, taking a nice long shower, and putting on some Beyonce or something, you know. But like, it could be whatever for you. But I do feel like you have to get yourself going, because as easy as all of what I'm saying may sound, like, it is hard. It's hard when you're not feeling anything and you don't feel like yourself. It's hard to do just those simple things. It's hard to get on your knees and pray. It's hard to open up your journal and be real, raw, and honest about your feelings. It's hard. You don't really want to confront yourself, but it's just the start to get yourself to be back into that spirit of who you really are and who you're called to be. So that's the first thing that I want us all to start with, is really just getting into a sense of acknowledgement of what's going on with us, going to the power that's higher than ourselves, then confronting ourselves head on, and then doing something to really kind of put your mind at ease. Like, yeah, it's gonna be okay, baby. It's all right. You still look good. You still feel good. It's gonna be okay. Like, you know how a mom would be with her baby when her baby not feeling too hot. So go ahead and put that in your notes, because that is where it starts. And quite frankly, the sooner that you get yourself to cater to yourself in these ways and release what you need to release, the better. Because I feel like when we try to prolong the feeling, like, oh, I just want to sit in this, I just want to feel this a little bit longer, or whatever it is that you might do and might be guilty of when you're in a slump, I feel like that leads us to being in a place of avoidance, where we're not confronting the problem head on, and therefore we're not able to show ourselves the love that we deserve, because we're procrastinating, we're ignoring our responsibilities, and now there's all this buildup of what we have to do. And you know, I talked about before how we need to transform our mindset from what we have to do to what we get to do, because a lot of what we complain about having to do are things that people are dreaming of one day doing. So I don't want us to really sit in the feeling of whatever has you in a slump for too long, because yeah, I think it just really prolongs getting everything else done. It really just puts you in that space of overwhelm in the long run, because you're really not tackling the problem head on, and now it's kind of like a domino effect with the rest of your life's responsibilities. You know, even if you still are showing up for other people, it's kind of like you're suppressing your own genuine emotions so that you can portray as somebody that in that moment you're really not. Like, you can show up for somebody else, whether it be like some special occasion or you're just going to hang out, and you seem like all is well. You think like they'll think everything is fine, but in reality, you're not yourself. You're not who you know yourself to be, or who you know yourself to be becoming. And so it just creates like this anxious, overwhelming feeling, at least for me. And so I do feel like, you know, the tough love in this place comes in with just really making sure that once you do those first 3 things I just discussed, you then start, you know, breaking down your responsibilities and breaking down your to-do list into the very smallest first step that you can, so that you can at least put one thing under your belt. Like, okay, I did whatever that first thing on your to-do list is. Maybe you have time to do the second thing, and even if you don't do these things in full completion, like, at least you gave it some of your attention for that day. And as long as you're building on it day after day, I know that you'll work yourself out of a funk, because I've done it and I know that it works. So definitely take that into account. And for those of us who that wouldn't really work, like, okay, you're not really gonna be thinking about the fact that, oh, if I don't do one thing on my to-do list or 2 things on my to-do list, or if I just don't really put my best foot forward into getting anything done that I know needs to be done, I'm not going to be affected until, you know, days down the line. Then also think about the dissatisfaction that you'll have days down the line when you start putting your best foot forward. Then when you think about how you allowed so much time to go by because you wanted that short-term comfort. For example, when we don't get out of bed, or we don't prepare ourselves to go to the gym, and we know that when we go to the gym and we're leaving the gym, like, we're so happy, we're so proud that we went to the gym that day. But in that moment, I don't have it in me. I have no interest in going to the gym. It's cold outside. I don't feel like driving to the gym. Oh, you could do a home workout. I'm too tired. I don't want to do that. I don't want to make nothing to eat that's healthy. I think it's more convenient for me to go through this drive-through. You know, creating all these excuses. I feel like what we need to do, that's an example of tough love, is start bullying ourselves. Like, if you had somebody that you were very, or that you found very well respected in your life, and they were witnessing all the betrayal that you're showing yourself when you say you're going to do something, you don't commit to it, and they had something to say about it every single time, that will leave you with being dissatisfied about your actions. And so that person needs to be you. When it comes to your life and what you got going on in your life, there should be no opinion greater than your own. And so I feel like what you need to do, and some people might advise against this, but I feel like this works, is bully yourself. You don't want the future version of you to have all this to say, girl, if you had started sooner, we could have been X, Y, and Z steps ahead. Girl, if you had just did this when you said you was going to do this, you would have already had this opportunity in your lap. You know what I'm saying? Just start talking to yourself like that, you know, within reason. Start talking to yourself like that so that you can get yourself to just get up and do the thing. Because a lot of the times, the idea of the thing is harder than what the actual thing is anyway. So if you can just get yourself to start, you'll realize it's really not that deep. And all the excuses that you were making for it were BS. And so keep that also in your mental log. Keep that, if you need to write it down on record, so that you can see, like, there has been moments and there has been times where I felt like I just couldn't do something. Like, I just didn't have the energy, the capacity, whatever, to do something. And I still did it. And that's going to create something within you that's going to remind you of the integrity that you hold within yourselves. And so when other times similar to the ones that you are facing, where you're in this slump or where you're feeling too tired or you're feeling too sad to get going, it's going to remind you in future occasions like, hey, the feeling I'm feeling is valid, but I know that I can still do the thing, and you'll do it. So now I want to talk about some actionable ways to show yourself tough love. And I will be looking down at my notes, so if you're watching on YouTube, then that's what's going on. But the first thing I think is very important in showing yourself tough love is setting boundaries, setting firm boundaries with yourself. And that can include limiting screen time, that can include taking away some bad habits that you have. So for me, that would be eating too late at night. You know, if I say I want to lose weight, why am I eating so late at night when I know I'm gonna go to sleep? That could be literally anything. I don't even have to go through the laundry list of things, because everyone has different bad habits. But whatever you know are the habits that are holding you back from being the version of yourself that you want to be, and it's not really showing yourself that you love yourself, that you trust yourself or can trust yourself, then that needs to be something that you set a firm boundary with. Like, no, that's just not who I am. I don't participate in doing X, Y, and Z, because that's just not aligned with the person that I consider myself to be. Another good way to consider setting strong boundaries with yourself, and this is something that I feel like everyone can apply to their lives, is doing what's necessary to beat procrastination. And it's something called a 3-minute rule. It's something called a 3-minute rule. And I know I listen to Mel Robbins, and she has the 5-second rule. And so the 3-minute rule is giving yourself 3 minutes of whatever task you don't feel like doing, setting a timer, 3 minutes. Do that task for 3 minutes. And like I said before, when I was saying, like, if you really just break it down into the smallest amount of time possible, you'll see that once you get started, you don't even have that same type of resistance anymore. Like, you're down to do whatever it is that you've been putting off doing, because you realize starting was the hard part. And so that's what the 3-minute rule is. So if you know that one of the reasons why you find yourself in a slump, or one of the reasons why you can't get anything done is because of procrastination, then go ahead and apply that 3-minute rule and start just doing the thing for 3 minutes and see how you feel. And if you genuinely do not have any more time to give it, then cool, set another 3-minute timer the next day. But if you find that, okay, this is actually more enjoyable than I thought, or this is easier than I thought, then go ahead and set another 15 minutes, another 20 minutes, however long you feel like it might take to make some good headway in that task, and start getting things done. And let's go ahead and cross out procrastination being one of our personality traits, because it's not cute, it's not cool, and it's not getting us anywhere. All right, so the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. I've tried this. I don't know if it works that well for me, but of course it's because I'm in my own way. But the 5-second rule is counting down from 5, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And once you get to 1, you don't give yourself any more time to think about what you need to do. You don't give yourself any more time to negotiate. Oh, you know, I could do this tomorrow, or let me give myself 5 more minutes. You don't do any of that. Once you get to 1, you get up and you start on the thing. So those are the 2 things that I want us to put into practice so that we can beat procrastination. Because like I said, I feel like procrastination is something that everybody struggles with. I don't know, I can't speak to the successful people that I look up to, because I don't know what they got going on. They might have been here and done that, and now they don't struggle with it anymore. But for those of us who are making our way, I think that's something everybody struggles with. And so try putting those 2 things into practice and see if any of them work for you. The second way you can show yourself tough love is by being your own accountability partner. I've had several accountability partners for different goals that I've had in my life. They never work. They never work. And I feel like it's because we're doing so many other things. So like, we might keep up with it for like a week, 2 weeks. I think the most I've ever kept up with an accountability partner was 2 weeks. That's it. But try being your own accountability partner. And the way to do this is by being really committed to keeping up with a tracker or a journal where you're marking each single day that you commit to a goal, even if you didn't give it 100%. Because sometimes we're not giving everything 100% every single day, and that's fine, because consistency is not giving 100%. It's just showing up on a consecutive basis, like making sure that you're doing a little bit each day or however often that you see fit for that goal to come to life. And so, for example, I'll put fitness as an example because that's something that I've been working towards, just being like a real fitness girly, being somebody that prioritizes my overall health. And so an example of being my own accountability partner would be keeping track of how many days I'm going to the gym, or even how many days I'm eating healthy, like real nutritious balanced meals. Keeping track of those two things, and also taking into account that I'm a woman, and I'm going to talk about cycle syncing in some episode in the future, because that's something that I feel like has also been a very big game changer when it comes to like prioritizing my fitness, understanding that my hormones fluctuate, and I don't always have 100% to give. But even when you don't have 100% to give, just always remember that you have at least 5%. I'm gonna start at 5. I ain't gonna go too much lower because 5 is already a low number, but you always have something to give. So even if it's just about showing up to the environment, so even if you don't feel like working out, just show up to the gym. Once you're there, you're not gonna just turn around and leave. You already made your way there. Or if you want to go on a walk, just go outside, take a couple steps, put on a song, and be like, okay, you know what, I actually am feeling good, this is making me feel good. Pull up a playlist. I'm gonna give myself 15 minutes, 15 minutes with this playlist. You might be vibed out, not even realize you've been walking for 15 minutes. Give yourself another 15. Like, we have to trick our brains into doing the things that we know need to get done. And a good way to do that, and a lot of people talk about this, actually it's in the book Atomic Habits, is by making what you don't really want to do enjoyable for you. So the next way to show yourself self-love is by confronting your fears and self-doubt. And a good way to go about this is simply just writing your list of fears, or writing all your limiting beliefs down onto paper. Well, you can do your notes app, but just writing it down. Don't say them out loud. Don't whatever. Just write them down. Because beside those things, I want us to start writing positive affirmations that we can tell ourselves when we start having these thoughts, these same fears pop up, these same limiting beliefs pop up. We can confront them with the positive affirmations that combat those beliefs. Because a lot of the times, what we think in certain moments, we know isn't real. But because we're in that feeling, because we're in that space, it's kind of hard to remind ourselves of what the truth is. So if we go ahead and have this handy for ourselves, then it makes it easier for us to combat those feelings by reminding ourselves of who we are. Like I said, you got to remind yourself about who you is. Who you are, who you is. So, yes. And I feel like another way to combat just our fears and self-doubt is to also celebrate our small wins. So if you're scared about, let's say you wanted to pursue something similar to this, like I talked about in the last episode about how my platforms aren't performing as well, but I know that it's because I haven't really committed the time that's necessary to do all of what I want to do to broaden like my audience and my reach. And some of that is fear, but other aspects of it just boil down to being lazy. I'm not gonna lie. But like when I do something like sit down and record or create outlines for an episode or whatever, like whatever I do that's serving the bigger purpose, that's serving the goal, I need to celebrate that with whatever I choose, so that I can provide myself that positive affirmation. Again, like just putting that praise within myself to remind myself like, hey, like you didn't think it was possible, or you thought it was going to be hard and you still did it. Just providing myself with that reassurance that I can do hard things, or I can do things even when I don't feel like it, even when it seems hard, when it seems challenging. I am capable. I can still do it. And celebrating yourself is also kind of one of those things that I feel like we don't really do enough of. But when you think about it, that's exactly how we got through our childhoods. Like, we were celebrated for making good grades. If you were an athlete, you had like ceremonies and stuff, or even just like positive self-talk that was coming to you from your coaches, your teachers, your parents, your siblings, your friends, whoever, that was reminding you of who you are. And that's all that self-love really boils down to, is really just focusing on who you are and how you can better that version of yourself. Like, however that looks for you, just doing that for you. So the next thing I want us to do to show ourselves tough love is to tell ourselves that we're not taking no more excuses. Think about if you were dating someone, or if you had a friend that you really, really valued the relationship with, and every single time they let you down, they had an excuse. They never took accountability. It was always just excuses, excuses, excuses. Eventually, you'll get fed up. And you'll probably want to end that relationship, right? But there's no real way to end a relationship with ourselves. We have to live with ourselves until the day that we die. And so I feel like a great way to show ourselves self-love and tough love is to create a no excuses rule. And to ask ourselves, when we do feel like making excuses, or we find ourselves coming up with excuses, how is this serving me? Is this serving me for right now because, oh, I don't feel like doing something and it's more comfortable to choose this other thing that I'm already doing than to confront what needs to be done head on? Or are we serving ourselves for the future? Like, okay, I don't feel like doing this, but I know if I do it, then I'll be one step ahead and I'll be one step closer to achieving this goal, to creating this dream, or making this dream become a reality. Ask yourself, how much do I value myself? Very, very tricky question, because, you know, off rip, I feel like a lot of us are going to say, well, I value myself a lot. I love myself a lot. But how much do you love yourself? How much do you value yourself if you're always creating excuses for why things are not getting done? Do you think that your time on this earth is just infinite? Do you think that you have forever and a day to get this thing done? Do you think that this dream is just going to live in your brain forever to the point that it comes true on its own? Do you not feel like you deserve to show up for yourself? Do you feel like you're not deserving of that thing, so that you don't have to show up for it because you feel like, you know, if it happens, it happens, and if it don't, it don't? Like, yes, I am a firm believer that whatever is for you, but also what you want is not just going to fall into your lap. Like, yes, I do believe in the power of manifestation. I do believe in God blessing those and having favor upon those who trust in him. But it's not just about that. Like, you have to still show up for yourself. Because if you don't value yourself, then why would you be blessed with more than what you already have? Like, how are you going to keep those things? How are you going to multiply those things? You don't value yourself, so you don't value the things that you have either. And it's going to show in the way that you treat yourself. So just, you know, create a rule within yourself. Like, I'm not doing no more excuses. And of course, things happen. So when things actually happen, you're not making excuses. You're just, you know, going with the flow, basically. You can't always see to what you said was going to happen because things happen. But let's be honest about when things come and kind of like alter our plans, and when we're the reason why things are not getting done. So this portion of the episode is going to be specifically talking about navigating slumps, because I did touch on this in the beginning, but I feel like, you know, this does deserve a deeper dive, because slumps are a part of life, and there's no way to avoid like getting into a slump, because there's so many factors of life that we don't anticipate happening, or the timing just seems to be off, and like just completely throws us off of our game. And so I want us to really just first accept that this is a part of life. And I already addressed, I want us to pray, you know, whatever higher power you believe in, pray to that power. I want us to journal 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking for. If 10 minutes sounds like a long time, do 5. But 10 minutes. Because I feel like when you give yourself just 10 minutes alone to really be honest with yourself, you feel so much better. Like, you just really feel a lot lighter. Even if that 10 minutes is spent crying and all you have to have on that paper is one sentence, like, I feel like shit. Like, I really do be feeling like that makes me feel better, because it's about confronting or acknowledging how you feel. That's really the start of getting out the slump. So also I'll say, when you are in a slump and it's probably because of something that you've done to yourself, like you got yourself in this space, don't put guilt into the mix. Like, don't make yourself feel guilty about why you are where you are. Like, acknowledging why you are where you are and what you did to contribute to getting into that space is important, but not from a place of guilt. Like, acknowledge where you fell short and then move on. Like, okay, so now what? You know what I'm saying? Like, when you just sit here and you just beat yourself up, exactly what are you gaining from that? Nothing. If anything, you're gonna put yourself in a worse mood. You're not gonna feel like doing anything still, because you're just sitting here highlighting all of the things that went wrong and how you're such a bad person and how you're such a failure and all of these things. It's not going to help you. So just don't put any guilt into the mix. Just be honest in acknowledging your feelings and the part that you played. And then when you're journaling, just be real honest about, how did you get here? Why do you feel stuck? What is the root cause? What contributions are you making? And how can you avoid this happening in the future? Like, what is it that you might need to stop doing? What is it that you might need to start doing? What cycles do you find yourself continuously repeating? Like, put all of that onto the page. And once you write it, I also suggest reading it back to yourself, because releasing it is one thing, but when you read it and like digest, like, oh my gosh, this is something that I actually do quite often, and this is why I find myself in this position quite often, then I feel like it kind of helps to be that catalyst of like, okay, I know I don't like this feeling that I'm feeling right now, and I know this is what I'm doing that's causing this feeling. So now I think you move a little bit more cautiously, so that you don't, you know, pretty much put yourself in a similar predicament moving forward. So similarly to what I said in the last segment about just ways, actionable ways to show yourself tough love and how that's a reflection of self-love, I also feel like getting yourself out of a slump is, I would say, easier, but I kind of feel like that's not the right word. But it's best to count your small wins. And that's something I just said in the last segment, but I just want to reinforce how important that is when you're in a slump, specifically because it kind of just provides that positive reinforcement within yourself. Like, okay, I don't feel like getting up and doing anything today, but I'm going to still get up. I'm going to still make my bed. I'm going to still brush my teeth and take a shower. I'm going to still clean up. Like, you know, and you don't have to do these things to the best of your ability. Just do them to show yourself a little bit of love that day, a little bit of grace that day. I'm going to still make sure that I eat, you know. Things that we oftentimes take for granted, or we don't really put too much emphasis on because we feel like it's just a part of our natural routine. When you find yourself in a slump, sometimes those same things are a little bit harder to do. So when you do them, I think it's very important to give yourself that pat on the back so that you can provide yourself with that encouragement. Like, okay, you did this, let's try doing this next, you know? Like, that was easier than I thought, or that wasn't as hard as I thought. Let's go ahead and try this next, you know? And still do the things that you know are going to make you feel just a little bit better. And just a side note, for when we're in a creative slump, a way that I feel like I combat this feeling is, for one, I'll create vision boards or like mood boards for projects that I have in mind, or like things that I want to do in the future. So I'll get on Pinterest and I'll just find like images that kind of exemplify what I'm going for. Or I'll listen to some music. One thing that I've been doing quite often throughout the course of this year, when I feel like I need a little kick in my behind, is I'll watch the Renaissance World Tour. Because I just love Beyonce, and I always have loved Beyonce. And I feel like she's one of those people that I look up to, and I feel like, you know, have had to weather so many storms that we don't even know about. And honestly, that's the case for a lot of people. Successful, not successful. Like, people are always going through things that we don't know about. But when it comes to somebody who has like a light shined on them, I feel like, you know, you can find one person that's like that. Somebody that has some form of cultural significance. And go into whatever type of art form that they are, providing the world with, and allow that to be your inspiration when you're in a slump. Just reminding yourself, like, they too are human, and they are who they are in this world. And so, like, just give yourself that reminder that it's okay to feel how you're feeling, but you still have big dreams that you need to work towards and bring into life. Or what you can also do, like, is say you're a writer, or say probably you have a podcast, or you're some form of content creator, like, just brainstorming something. And sometimes we have like brain fog. We don't really know how to articulate our ideas, or how to like draw them, or we can't really like put the vision in our head to paper, or sometimes the vision in our head doesn't even make sense to where we can like materialize it in any kind of way. But I say, like, just do some type of dump digitally on some paper, whatever. Just do some kind of brain dump with whatever is coming to mind. Like, and if nothing's coming to mind and you just do some scribble scrabble, just do that, because it's going to help to release some form of frustration. So yeah, that's definitely something else I would say to incorporate when you're in a slump and you're trying to get yourself out, is to just count the small wins and do like something small to go ahead and get that frustration out, or get you to remind yourself of what you're working towards, like what you're seeking most of the times when you're not in this same slump. And that brings me to my next point, which is just reconnecting with your values. I think a lot of our goals kind of align with the values that we hold about life and with our lives specifically. And so I feel like when we are in a slump, what we do need to remind ourselves is what is important to us, and to find little actions that align with those values. So let's say something that you value is financial freedom. Okay, cool. So being in a slump, you probably shouldn't, go and just blow a bag instinctively online, or you probably shouldn't go and overindulge in all this fast food and all these cakes and sweets and whatever because you're feeling bad right now. You feel like you need something to fill that void. You probably shouldn't do that. But if you're in a slump, you're not really going to think about that unless you focus on your values and focus on the things that are important to you. So, just doing those things kind of like grounds you in a sense. It reminds you to like move a little bit slower, don't move too instinctively, and just do things still that, even though you're not feeling the best right now, are not going to make you feel even worse when you do come back to your right mind. And lastly, something that always helps me, because I be talking to myself all the time, and that's just showing myself more self-compassion, showing myself more grace than I probably typically show myself, because I don't feel like I need as much grace when I'm not in a slump. I'm a little bit harder on myself. But when you're going through a hard time, just think of it as if your best friend or someone that you love and genuinely care about was going through a hard time. Like, you're not going to want to see them just waste time. You're not going to want to see them rot away in bed. You're not going to want to see them doing things that are more detrimental than helpful. So give yourself that same compassion and talk to yourself, firmly, but still from a place of love. Like, girl, I get it. This been a rough week, but we said we was going to do X, Y, and Z. So let's go ahead and commit to doing X, Y, and Z. Acknowledge how you're feeling, but also acknowledge what the bigger picture is, and just tell yourself, like, I love you too much to give up on you. I love you too much. I believe in you too much to let you just waste this day away. Okay, I'll let you give yourself an hour of this. You can sit here and watch this show for another hour, but then we got to get up. Or honestly, it might be better for you to say something more along the lines of, hey, if we get up and do this for an hour, I'll let you take the whole 7 to bedtime off and doing whatever you want to do. Like, if you don't want to do nothing else but lay here and cry and eat ice cream and watch your not your best, but your favorite TV show, I'll let you do it. But you got to get up and give me at least an hour of work towards whatever it is that you said you wanted to do. because I just love you too much. And I know right now you're not feeling your best, but you're going to feel good again. You're going to feel good again, and you're going to be so thankful that you didn't just waste all this time. So those are the actionable steps that I want to leave you with when it comes to navigating your way out of a slump and still showing yourself some good self-love. And while being tough on yourself or being a little bit harder on yourself does sound like a challenge that's also kind of just like temporary, like you're only showing yourself tough love in this moment so that you can get yourself to do the thing, I do want to bring light to the fact that tough love is something that has long-term lasting effects on who we are as a person and the love that we show ourselves, you know, in the grand scheme of things, long-term. And one of those ways that tough love has like a long-term benefit on us is by increasing our self-esteem. We feel more empowered, we feel more self-assured when we are tough on ourselves, or we are a little bit harder on ourselves in those moments where we're trying to be soft on ourselves and make these excuses. Because once we, you know, give ourselves that kick and give ourselves that push and start showing up for ourselves in the ways that we need to, we can move a little bit more confidently, because now we have the respect that we would have if someone else always showed up when they said they were going to. We have that for ourselves now. And we know, like, okay, even when I don't feel my best, I never let myself down. I always do what I say I'm going to do. And I know, like, this is just who I am. So it does help with our self-esteem. And that helps with our overall resilience, if you think about it, because now we're just providing ourselves with that positive reinforcement of, okay, I could do hard things, I could do challenging things, no matter how tough things may seem for me, no matter how sad or down and out that I might feel. I know that if I commit my mind to something, I could do it. I might not do it 100%, but I'm going to do it because I said I was going to do it. And I know that I love myself too much to betray myself. I love myself too much to, you know, settle for bare minimum, even from myself. And bare minimum in this sense isn't giving, you know, 10% as opposed to 100. It's giving yourself 10% as opposed to not doing anything and just procrastinating and wasting your time, you know. That's really what bare minimum is. It's providing yourself with all the excuses in the world why something is not getting done when you said it's going to get done. And even right now, I am struggling with this, but it's something that I know, you know, as we work towards bettering ourselves, it's something that's going to be a great empowerment for ourselves. It's just building resilience and providing ourselves with the acknowledgement that I am who I say I am. I do what I say I'm going to do. And I love and respect myself so much that I don't go back on my word, even with myself. And what creating this resilience does for us is also remind us that we are in control of our own lives. Because I think it's important to be reminded of that. And I feel like I've listened to a lot of self-help speakers, motivational speakers, read, you know, quite a bit of self-help books. And it's always a reminder that nobody is coming to save you. You can have 1 million people in your community, 1 million people in your village that loves you, that's always there for you to lean on, but they cannot save you from yourself. And so when you do all these things while you're in the slump and you feel, you know, down and out, and you feel like all odds are stacked against you, you remind yourself that you are in control by doing the little things that show yourself this same tough love. By giving yourself that nudge, by giving yourself that push, by doing that one little thing that you didn't really feel like doing, but you gave it, you know, a little bit of your time and attention that day. You remind yourself that you are in control. Despite what's going on around you, you are in control. And it's also a reminder to yourself that things can and will get better, but it's just going to take time. And you have to be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself while life is happening around you, because a lot of factors of life are just not in our control. And so why not just be in control of what we can, especially if that's a way of showing ourselves love. And so to close, I just want to recap that showing yourself self-love is very important, but it goes beyond just pampering yourself. It goes beyond the spa days, getting your hair done, getting your nails done, whatever. It goes beyond shopping sprees. And showing yourself tough love is also more than being critical with yourself, more than guilt tripping yourself, more than being harsh about where you are in life and how you've contributed. It's about being honest, yes, but it's also about being graceful and finding ways to encourage yourself and empower yourself through the small things. And so I'll leave you guys with that. If you have anything to add to the conversation, of course, feel free to leave it in the comments. Or if you're implementing anything that was discussed today, feel free to tag me if you document yourself any type of way doing these things that we discussed today. Tag me on Instagram and show me how you're practicing tough love. Show me how you're practicing self-love, how you're navigating your way out of a slump, so that I can repost it and other people can be encouraged to do the same. I love you guys. I thank you guys for all the patience that you've shown with me on this journey thus far. I definitely hope that what has been discussed today is something that you implement, especially as we're closing out this year and entering into a new one, because I don't want us to be our biggest enemies. I want us to be our biggest supporters, be the biggest cheerleader in our own corners, whether things are going good or bad for us. So I'll leave you with that. I hope everyone has a beautiful weekend and a beautiful week ahead. And yeah, toodles.